Howdy, and welcome back to a brand new season of Cinema Sitdown. I'm Nolan, and today I am joined by...
I'm Sam.
I'm Kayla.
And I'm Noah.
This week we watched Paint, starring Owen Wilson. We'll talk about it more in just a second. Well,
Hello.
Welcome back, everybody, to what we are pretty sure is season 5.
Exciting.
So, Paint is a movie about Carl Nargle, which we aren't sure if that's his real name, but it's sort of a Bob Ross parody type thing, which we have ties to because, of course, PBS. What did you guys think? Just first impressions?
I honestly enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. Originally, I wasn't sure if it was supposed to be like something more serious or if it was supposed to be a joke, and as it went on, obviously, it's like a joke parody. I thought it was very funny how they approached different subjects, but also made sure it was just lighthearted the whole time. I really enjoyed it, honestly. I don't know, I thought it was really great.
I enjoyed it too. It's not necessarily like my favorite movie by far, but I also was like, am I supposed to take this seriously? Like, because when they're trying to do emotional stuff, I'm just in here like, okay, serious. And then it's like, oh, everyone really likes this Carl guy.
So they don't.
Yeah, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that threw me off at the beginning when all the girls was really feeling him. Like, they all wanted a piece of Carl. I was like, oh, okay. And yeah, I was still trying to figure out what type of movie this was too, so it was really throwing me off. But then I was like, okay, maybe Bob Ross was really like that. If it, you know what I'm saying.
That's sort of where I was at too, where it was like, I heard that this was a parody of Bob Ross, and I was like, okay, this is sacred ground. You are not supposed to parody Bob Ross.
Yeah.
Because that's the guy. I love him. But then as the movie went on, I was like, okay, never mind.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, this is fine. I'm
good.
okay with this. But the whole thing, I know Bob Ross, he was like super in love with his wife. And when his wife died, his painting sort of declined. And so having Carl be like a womanizer, misogynist, terrible person who sleeps with everyone he comes in contact with.
They just painted pictures.
Yeah, that's all they did. They just painted.
They were just hanging out pictures. They weren't doing
Yeah.
anything.
That's my fault for assuming otherwise.
Just a nice shoulder rub.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything. They just hung up paintings.
My fault, guys. I'm sorry.
I can't believe you do that.
Goodness.
One episode in, and I'm already making mistakes this season. But I just thought it was a really interesting take. I liked it. I didn't think that I was going to root for him based on the first.
I know.
It was like 10 minutes in, I was like, this guy's awesome. And then it was like 15 minutes in, I was like, oh, this guy sucks.
Yeah.
I was at the end. I was like, I don't know if I should be rooting for him right now because things kept going badly and he kept doing the wrong things and like kind of being overall the worst. So I was like, how are they gonna spin this to where I want him to be happy again? Because at the moment, I don't. Because he just was it's just hard to root for. So it was kind of interesting to see him just like go like a full 180. And I was like, you know what? I can get behind this. Fine. You can have it. You can have whatever. But I don't know. It took a minute for me to be like, okay.
Yeah, went up and down for sure.
I think it's when they started revealing more of like who he really is, like revealing like that his girl ended up cheating on him at one point, and then so he like kind of was like chasing that feeling of kind of trying to replace her, but he knew he could never really replace it, and so like he was just going through that his whole life and whatnot, and then like they making it seem like he really wasn't even out here with these girls. Like he was, but then it's like he kind of wasn't. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Maybe they really were just painting.
Maybe they really
were just like hanging out in the back of his van.
I think it did establish very early on, like they still did love each other. Yeah. Like I felt that the whole time. So, I mean, that's something at least that was consistent.
Yeah, just had that tension of like if your ex-wife was your coworker or something.
Oof.
Or all of your ex-girlfriends were your coworkers.
That too.
Yeah. I was gonna say something about how like I think the one pivotal point that I don't know what about the painting when he was like painting inside of his barn with like the big paint splashes. I think that was when I was like, okay, maybe he's actually trying, so maybe I can give him a chance. But I don't know. Up to the point,
Yeah, I have a whole thing with that barn painting, because the scene is he's throwing cans of paint, he's tossing them around, he's dipping his hair in the paint and then slamming his head against the wall, and even still, he's doing all these things that we as a viewer think for about a minute or two during this montage is just random chaotic movement.
Thought he was going crazy.
And even still, all he can do with all this randomness is paint another picture of Mount Mansfield, which for the viewer looks something like this.
Can you even see it?
We'll fix that in post.
Yeah. But because he just painted the same thing over and over, and that was the whole deal. But I feel like it's very representative of Mount Mansfield is representative of Carl's masculinity and ego. As soon as he starts feeling threatened and feeling alone, he starts to paint Mount Mansfield, which he describes as like the biggest, most powerful thing in Virginia, and that's sort of how he views himself as a person and Mount Mansfield as a landmark. Not to mention, it's called Mount Mansfield, which Ambrosia emphasizes whenever she's talking about it. So the whole thing is sort of a monument to his fragility, and I think that's why he just keeps painting it over and over and over, because he lost his connection to his art. He couldn't paint from the heart anymore, so he just had to paint what was there, and what was there was, I'm a loser, here's a cool mountain.
Mount Mansfield.
I didn't actually pick that up. That's a good observation.
Thank you.
Yeah. At first, I like how he came off so humble and whatnot.
Yeah, he really
did. And then like how we were saying, he is kind of like full of himself and his masculinity. He kind of got some toxic masculinity in there too.
For sure.
But he seemed so cool at first. Like he had all the people who would take his jacket and take his pipe and wipe his hand off and everything. It seemed like he didn't really need all that. But as soon as they took all that away from him, now he's like, well, what's going on? Why is nobody taking my picture off or taking my painting off the stage and stuff? And then he started kind of showing that toxicness inside of him.
Stealing newspapers out of people's...
That was something else. I really... I don't know.
I love scenes like that. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was done.
Okay. I love scenes like that where the character says, oh, this doesn't bother me. Oh, I don't care about this. And then immediately jump cut to them doing an action that they would never do, or showing that they care, and it's hilarious. I love that.
This movie's humor was actually really good. It took me a minute to kind of get used to it. And then the more that they did, I was like, okay, I'm starting to get acquainted to how this is written, and I'm really loving it. Because it was stuff like that where it was him being so calm. And they really played up to him being calm all the time, where he just didn't say anything for like 3 seconds. And then, what was his name? Tony, Stephen Root's character. He was like, oh my God, are you yelling at me?
And he got close to him. It's like, oh my gosh.
It was the same energy as that when I don't remember who said like her favorite show was Dancing with the Stars, and he kind of like stood there like silently for a little bit and was like, and then walked away, and they were like, oh, he's really mad, and I was like,
never seen him this angry.
Never seen this angry before. That was what it was. I was like, that's really funny that they think that like that's him being angry, which it probably is.
I loved the whole characterization of like a sort of twist on Bob Ross, because one thing that they did was his audio was always so low, because he was always whispering, that you really heard his like lip smack and stuff like that, and it was kind of gross. But that's what I remember watching Bob Ross and trying to get into this painting, and then he would like say something and I'd be like, oh dude, that was, of course it's not his fault, he's whispering, they got to turn the mic up, but like
that corncob pipe. He did something to his throat. He can't raise his voice to nobody no more.
Well, we're not sure if it's a pipe. They had to blur it.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they did.
As far as y'all concerned, it's nothing there.
That was like the worst blurring I've seen.
Yeah, it was not good, but it was funny.
I think that was the point, though.
That's the point.
They were like, oh, we digitally removed his pipe because PBS is not allowing us to show tobacco anymore. And then they had this bit, like the bit where the TV comes up, and it takes like a minute to get fully up.
It took forever.
I forgot what they were showing on the TV. And then like, when the blur started, I was like, what is that? I completely forgot because it took so long to get to the actual joke.
Those are another type of scene that I go crazy for, just the long, drawn out.
Yeah.
You could hear us start to laugh at it while we're watching it, and then we just kept going.
I liked it. Yeah, I think it was written really good, like with all the different jokes. I think Ambrosia, like as a character, I feel like she kind of like she wasn't in there at the very beginning, and then like she kind of had wrapped her story up before like the very end. I feel like she kind of came in, did her thing, and got out. I feel like that was really good. They wrote a good character there. Whoever did
I really
that.
liked Ambrosia's character. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie. So
I liked her a lot.
yeah, she was cool. It was kind of like, I guess it was supposed to show like the direct opposite of what
Yeah.
he's supposed to be. They did it like in a way where it is so obviously different that it made him kind of take a step back and be like, oh, well maybe it's not, because he kept towards the end he kept saying, oh, that's really good. He was like
Yeah.
actually like aware that her paintings were really good. And before then he was kind of like, well, you're nothing compared to me. Like you're literally like, you don't do this as good as me. But she managed to bring a whole new light into what he thought art was, and then they had his whole thing about how he isn't an artist anymore. It was a really interesting way that they like played it, like you said. So
Yeah, she tried to take his girl and some more stuff.
she did.
Which she succeeded. She didn't
She
try.
did
Yeah,
take
she
his girl.
succeeded.
She did take his girl, and
did
then
take his
every
girl.
other girl on the set.
Yeah, she was.
I think she
swooped up
did.
everybody.
Yeah, go Ambrosia.
Yeah, I think it was everyone. I liked the position of art to be a metaphor for social progress. I mean, that's what art has always been. It's
Yeah.
a reflection of the artist who makes it. But in this specifically, I mean, I didn't know what the setting was of this movie for the first half hour, because everything was so 70s. I mean, the people were wearing
Yeah, what year
corduroy.
is this set?
I think it was present day.
It was present day because she got an Uber to his house.
Yeah, she got an Uber.
Yeah.
So
And-
that's pretty
But
recent.
the barbershop felt old school. He's in his old van.
Did you see the computers at the
he's
PBS
freaking-
station?
The computer,
I-
the TV, and that TV in that girl's
Right.
room.
But she called an Uber.
She called an
Called
Uber.
an
Yeah,
Uber.
bro.
That's what's throwing me off. I
Which-
never saw a mobile phone. I never saw
Yeah,
anything.
like I
He
mean, he mentioned
mentioned
it
it,
once or
yeah.
twice,
Yeah.
right? Like he was like, I don't know how it works.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he was mentioning like
Because
voicemail.
someone left a voicemail. I was like, I don't know how it works. Usually, someone takes a message for you.
Yeah.
And it was kind of that was supposed to be a jab at like Tony, though. I thought.
I think.
But
Yeah.
still.
Well, the
That's
thing
the
is,
point.
like, the way that he's dressed reflects his ideals as an artist. Like, he is very stuck, and just as a person, he's very stuck in the 70s, so he dresses like it. He does his hair like it. He gets the number 12 at the barbershop, and his art hasn't changed since the 70s, and neither have his attitudes towards women or the world in general. He's still got that van that has a crazy amount of exhaust and carbon
Yeah.
emissions with it. Doesn't know what Uber is, doesn't know how to use a cell phone. Everything adds up to this being about a person who is refusing to progress. And then when you have him who just keeps painting Mount Mansfield versus Ambrosia, who's painting a tree stump that's getting bled on by a UFO.
Yeah, no, I
It's
like
a
that.
super
Something.
cool parallel of how art sort of showcases progression in society. And I've said it before on the show, like every time we've watched anything, art about artists is like my favorite thing. So when we watched the documentary about Troll 2, and it was like weird, and people were like, I don't know how to feel about this movie. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever, because these people were like insane for this movie.
Right.
And that's sort of how I felt about this movie more than anything. I didn't, as a comedy, it was really good. As a drama, it was fine. But as art about artists, it was fantastic.
Right.
Yeah, I think once you get past like the initial, oh, everyone's into him, oh, there's the comedy, it's set in this time, it didn't seem serious at first. Once you get past that, I think you can see that there is a lot of more meaning behind it all,
Absolutely.
which I definitely did not see until the later half of the movie.
Yeah, something that I really enjoyed towards like, I'm gonna talk about like the ending really quick, but when he got his haircut, got on number 4, but that was him kind of removing himself from like this bubble that he put himself into, and he kind of put, I don't know, when he asked for his hair and then he went and like got high.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say that?
Gave him some, yeah.
He went and then like burned down his old barn, which is a whole scene in and of itself, but he still kind of surrounded himself with people that had the same values, because I forgot the girl's name. It was Catherine. Her car was old school, so she also has a similar style of like how she'd like to live as him, and like the whole joke of like, does she have an A-frame up in the mountains or in the cottage or something? And I saw that she did have an A-frame cottage. I was like, you're joking. So but he notices that after she starts going to school, and he's like, hey, we should get cable. that was like the first time that I think he's spoken about like progressing.
Yeah.
At all up until that point. And she was like, I think it's pretty great. And he's like, well, I'm gonna be alone. And he's like, no, it's fine. So now it isn't him being like holding it back. It's her being like, well, but I like how our life is.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting way of going about showing his character progression, like very obviously, in my opinion.
It was his hair, and he stopped tucking his shirt into.
Yeah.
Those are the two things.
And he had changed that shirt. And they wore that shirt for about 20 years.
Yeah. It was a cool shirt, though. I liked it.
It was a nice shirt.
I really liked how everyone dressed.
You should buy it.
Yeah. Next episode, I will be in Carl cosplay the
Oh my
entire
God.
time, and nobody is allowed to mention
Hair and
it.
everything.
Oh yeah, I'm getting the number 12.
Okay.
What was your guys' favorite scene in the entire movie?
I liked the barn scene a lot. The one where he lit it on fire. I don't know what it was about it, but I really
arson
enjoyed
is cool,
it.
so.
Arson is cool. I don't support that. I just enjoyed how like it looked like it was kind of intentional, like what he was doing, because he had a trail of his hair up into his thing, and he dumped his ashes out onto his hair that is obviously flammable, and it led to the paintings. And he's like, he seemed like he knew what he was doing.
Can of turpentine right there.
Yeah.
He was just
But
you know.
I agree. It
Under
kind of
the
seemed
influence.
both intentional and unintentional, because on the one hand he was high, on the other hand
Okay, there we go.
there was the can, the hair, the sparks going everywhere. But like we're thinking like, has he done this before? Is that why his name is Carl Nargle? Because that scene at the end, which I think was funny, was just literally talking
Said
about
to fake his identity before.
Yeah.
Maybe
Like-
he faked his identity before. Who knows?
maybe he's already burned down a barn with all the paintings in it, and he
Maybe.
decided to do it again.
Honestly, I don't know. What about you?
It's the barn. I don't
the
even.
barn.
I mean, there are two barn scenes it could be, so maybe it's just something about that barn, but it could be the fire, and it could be him painting the big painting of
Both times
Mount
have like a
Mansfield.
theme of destruction about them,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
like really important in any type of movie. When there's like a really obvious like destroying something scene that's supposed to be something that's a really pivotal and important moment in that character's plot line. So I think it's probably why we like it so much, because it's really intense, and it's always fun to watch something like that happen.
The thing that I like about those two things is, in one, he's creating the painting of Mount Mansfield and sort of destroying the legacy of Carl Nargle. He's destroying himself, because he's admitting that I'm washed up. There's one thing I can do. Even if I try to do something else, I'm always going to return to Mount Mansfield, to my own personal insecurities, and to the things that are wrong with me.
It's also a comfort thing for him.
And then in the other one, he is destroying all of his work and destroying that painting of Mansfield, but creating a new life for him. And so it's sort of in one scene it's in creation there's destruction, and in the other it's in destruction there is creation, and it's the same wall, the same barn, everything is the same, except for his attitude and the things that he's going through in the moment. Also, it's just so hard. Like, if you turn that image into an album cover, like him sitting in the chair while all of his work
really
is
would.
behind
It
him
would work
burning,
very hard.
it totally would. So yeah, maybe it's just that. Maybe it is the symbolic stuff. What about you?
I liked it in general. A favorite scene? Probably when he bought them the TJ Maxx cups.
Yeah.
Because what
Okay,
the
that
heck
was
was you
good.
thinking, dude? Like, how could you have possibly
Well, they could
thought
get
out of everything in that moment? So probably just the TJ Maxx cups.
at least they'll get in-store credit for those. All right. Out of 10, what are we thinking?
Honestly, I feel like I'd recommend this to somebody. Like, I really liked it that much. I'm like, I don't want to give anything a 10 out of 10 ever. So I'll give it like a 9 out of 10.
Ooh.
It was good. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to.
I'm gonna flip that a little bit. I also enjoyed it. Okay. Don't
I'm sorry,
do it like that.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna flip it a little bit. I'm gonna give it a 6.5 because I would still recommend it to someone. I did enjoy it, but I don't think I'd go out of my way to watch it again.
That makes sense. Personally, I would probably give it a 7 or 8. Definitely would recommend. It's good character study, artist study. So I liked it.
7 or 8. 7 or 8.
All right, well, thank you for joining us in our special place. That sounds terrible if you have not seen the movie. And I even wrote that down. I don't know why I didn't foresee that happening. Anyway, paint from the heart, live from the heart, and we'll see you in the next one.